G'day and welcome to Perth Property Insider. I'm your host, Jared Mann, and today I'm going to go behind the scenes of the property management industry, take you into some of the little known and hidden truths that is unfortunately becoming all too commonplace at the moment with property managers over the last 2-3 years, needing to adapt, needing to survive, and cutting a lot of corners in how they're remaining profitable. So I've dragged out my superstar property manager, Jewayne Loong, to chat through what we both see happening in the industry and some of the things we're doing to go the opposite way to that and doubling down on our service. So stay tuned. I'm sure you're going to pick up a lot. Let's go inside.
Welcome to Perth Property Insider, where you will learn how to grow your wealth and improve your life using Perth Property. Our show is brought to you by Investors Edge Real Estate, the highly rated and award-winning property management specialists servicing the whole of Perth. Now, here is your host, Jared Mann.
G'day, Jewayne. How you going?
Hey, Jared, I'm good. Yourself?
Yeah, excellent, mate. I guess today I wanted to chat about some of the inside knowledge that happens within the property management space. And I guess to the average investor, when you're browsing for potential property managers, they can all seem the same. And it's really hard to know what's actually happening to deliver the service day to day, isn't it?
Yeah, it sure is. Everyone's got promises and things they put online, but I suppose the service in the back end is what's most important.
And I guess over the last 5 years, what I've seen, just to set the landscape, and you would have certainly seen it too, is that with rents coming down 22%, not only landlords have done it tough, all real estate agencies and property managers have done it extremely tough as well. So we've all in the real estate space had to try to find how we survive. Basically, when your profit margin might have been at 20% before, to have such a large portion, if not all of that, drop out, over the 2 to 3 years, you have to try to figure out how else to deliver your service and reconfigure things. And we've, made the conscious choice to double down on service and reconfigure to deliver greater level of service, and made the conscious choice to invest in our people and find the highest quality of managers that we can, and invest a lot in training week on week. And when you bring a new team member on, you spend 3 months of intensive training with them. And I guess the selection of those team has been incredibly important ongoingly. We're lucky to have such a stable team, but most of them are property investors themselves, if not property owners, and they understand those emotions that we go through as investors. So we've taken that approach, and of course we would have seen the other approach out there, haven't we?
Yeah, sure have. People need to still make a profit at the end of the day, Jared. So there's others who have had to reduce their costs by cutting their service, I guess. And I guess today's conversation is about how different parts of the service can be done by different entities and what that really costs the investor.
Yeah, ultimately that's what it's about. Because if all things were equal, we'd go with the best property manager. But when people get two sets of fees in front of them, sometimes, especially when things are tight, it's tempting to go for the lower fee, not realizing what it's going to cost them ultimately overall. And I guess what I've seen happen in broad brush strokes is that property management companies have gone and given 150 to 200 properties to a manager, and they've outsourced all the routine inspections and a lot of these other tasks that are actually pretty essential for a property manager to know your property. And in doing so, the property managers don't get to know their properties very well. They don't get to be hands-on, and you're just another number as another number in their portfolio. Think about having 200 tenants, 200 owners. It's 400 relationships. Pretty very.
I just don't think you can remember all the names for all the people.
Names, let alone details of their properties. So Look,
Yeah.
let's go into, I guess the purpose of today was to go into some of these hidden things that might shock the average property investor. And I just wanted to lift the lid on them and expose that they are out there. So when someone is going about selecting their property manager, they can dig a little deeper and find out the practices that, the property manager they're considering has. So I guess the first one was that you'd know it, I'd know it, but most people wouldn't know that you only need 4 days of training to be a property manager. That's pretty crazy, isn't it?
Sure is. I think I won't name any of the training resources, but there was a company I was looking up basically saying you can get your property management registration in 4 days of class time. And the amount of knowledge that you actually need to manage someone's investment property, something worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions, depending on the suburb you're in, it's just mind-boggling to think that 4 days of training is sufficient to manage such an expensive asset.
Yeah. And the sad thing is that a lot of property managers are just shown to a desk fresh out of their course and given a mobile phone, and they're expected to hit the ground running. And the majority of firms don't have intensive training programs and don't have the procedures for every single task of the business, and don't have, I guess, the systems that sit over the top of property managers to ensure that things are getting done. And that's where we're very different with those things.
Exactly. When anybody is to join us and join our team, the recruitment process is quite intensive to ensure, number one, we're finding the right person, but number two, providing that training that's more than what the mandatory or the legislative requirements are. It's actually empowering our team to know more, learn more, and be able to deliver an exceptional level of service, not just what's required. So the whole idea is making sure that the investor at the end of the day gets that correct advice to make sure that asset is being maintained well.
Well, we cover a whole range of other things, don't we? From investment mindset to how do we deliver over and above expectations, and we go into business and investing, philosophies and principles so that they can really understand our client and deepen their own investing knowledge. What are some of the other areas you can think of that we cover that the average property manager wouldn't?
One
Any
thing I
that
think
come
is,
to mind? I'm putting you on the spot here, but our training plan. You could probably pull it up while we're talking if you're really stuck.
Look, I think the one thing that really is required in training a property manager, one is negotiation, and two really is selling. When you're renting a property out and you're taking it to market to lease the property, you fundamentally are performing a sales function. You're trying to sell that property to the prospective tenant, and a lot of time is spent negotiating and talking and trying to find the right fit, right? Find the right person to move into the property and convince them that it's the right property too. So with 4 days of training, it's pretty hard to cover that off. I know that sales training courses can run for a lot longer just on sales. But
that course is 9 days, Jewayne, so don't get too ahead of yourself. But very often than not in the sales side, the training offered by agencies is a lot better. And I think there's just an assumed amount of knowledge that an experienced property manager should have, but where are they actually getting it? And it's often from, in many cases, just making the same mistake many times over 5 years and not actually progressing their knowledge at a deep enough level to be able to service an investor properly. And that's what probably frustrated me the most before starting our agency 12 years ago, when I had 4 property managers at the time. I was, I'm feeling almost tearing up in the back of my throat, just thinking of how difficult that was and frustrating it was when my properties are vacant and they're being damaged and the managers were not getting back to me. So communication's so important as well. And sometimes that's not trainable. So you really have to look for that to be at the core of someone, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. And I think more important than just looking at the one property manager and the person that you're speaking to, it's actually looking at the companies and the processes behind to support that property manager, which I think that's what we've been speaking about in passing here, Jared, is that we really need that support, because if that one person And let's be honest, they could be hit by a bus tomorrow, touch wood they don't, but we need to have that support behind them to fill in the gaps and make sure that consistently a high level of service
Consistency is everything, isn't it? I mean,
yeah,
some of our team, you've been with me 9 years, Emma, I think's 10, Lauren 7, Dallas, is he 7th or 8th? But
yeah, it's coming up.
the
on
team's
7th, I think.
definitely getting up there in years. And then when we do have a change with some of our newer team members, we've got that consistent training, the consistent level that we get them to, and then we don't just assume things are being done. They have their key performance indicators to keep over the top of them, and they have their weekly check-ins, and we're continuously making sure at a management level over them that it's all, to the highest standard possible. So any other businesses that don't have that, balls can be dropped. That's where you get those experiences that I had back, 12, 14 years ago before I started the agency. So number 2, most property managers have never owned a property before. Now, does that come as a surprise to anyone out there?
Not sure if it does, Jared, but it's quite a scary thought when you're speaking with your property manager and you ask them a question like, "Oh, should I be paying P&I or interest only?" And the property manager just looks at you with a blank stare.
Silence on the other end of the
That's
discussion.
that's right. So I think it's really important, that feeling of having to make mortgage payments. That feeling of trying to get ahead in life and put some money
Knowing
aside.
how to just troubleshoot your hot water system is pretty important too.
Yeah, even on the most basic level. So yeah, 100%. I mean, troubleshooting the hot water system comes naturally to some of us, doesn't it? But if you've just come straight out of home and haven't had the experience of owning your own property before, do you really know?
Yeah, I guess it's about that being able to emotionally empathize and understand what our clients are going through, as well as the tenants. And if we approach a situation with more understanding and know and can see both sides, then you're going to be able to massage things together and get better outcomes for people, aren't you?
Yeah, and I think one of the things that makes us a little bit different is a lot of us here own property investments, done subdivisions, and I think that adds another layer to the property management service that we can offer. Even
when you've added value to a property, you can often spot it where a client can't.
That's right.
And,
that's right.
You can make the suggestions to renovate this or that, or find out from the tenant what they would like to be improved in the property, and go about trying to get a higher rent and not just assuming, what we have is the most we can get too. So. Number 3, some will never see the properties they manage. I touched on that in beginning, but it's becoming more and more commonplace for managers to be looking after 200 to 300 properties, which is absolutely crazy. And typically in that structure, there's a junior performing the routine inspections, and they might be an 18-year-old. And again, relating back to the experience of the person, it's really difficult for a manager to be just trying to organise maintenance and trying to troubleshoot issues with the property when they're not seeing it themselves. And also, seeing is believing when you're trying to hold a tenant accountable to things too. So there can be a lot that's missed if the routine officer's not having a good day. She, she's not the one that has to then deal with the issues later. So that's the difficulty of splitting that, role.
Yeah, and I think how can you talk about something you don't see? How can you hold people to account, as you mentioned before, to damages that you haven't seen? It makes things a lot more difficult. And it's also just in conversation. Bedroom 2, the curtains are slightly damaged. Which one's bedroom 2 again? You just don't know until you've been to the property. And even though we have floor plans and even though we have video tours, nothing beats walking through the home and actually being able to get hands-on, get underneath the vanities, get underneath the kitchen sinks, and actually inspect the wear and tear damages and leaks. And I think
the leaks, that's the hidden one that builds up over time that an experienced person wouldn't know to look for.
Yeah, exactly.
So number 4, many don't know how to properly market your property, and we love sharing very poor ads that we come across from other agents. They get passed around the office and we all have a laugh, but there's an investor on the other side of that ad who's ending up with less for their property than they should get. What are some of the factors people should be looking for to market their property well?
Well, I think this is a really good one for any investor to jump online and have a look at the ads that are of those properties in the area, and straight away you can see the difference in quality between someone who knows what they're doing.
The others that the property managers got up for rent.
Yeah, exactly. And if it appears like they've got photos from 2014 and it's timestamped in the bottom corner, you probably think that the marketing needs to be refreshed. Things as well, such as videos, also very important. But going back to what I mentioned earlier, in 4 days, you don't get a lot of training on how to market your property well, how to measure your marketing and make quick adjustments. So a story I'll share with you, I think I've shared this with you before, Jared, was a client who's come to us. She thought she was paying a good fee for a current property manager, but it was vacant for 7 months. And when I had a look online, the photos were pretty poor, the ad copy was pretty poor, and how many viewings had been done? Not many, a handful in 7 months. So it was about time she made the change and she came on board with us. We marketed it for the same price. The difference was we used some really great photos and a video tour and great ad copy. And I think it was 9 or 10 days we managed to secure 2 applications and get that property leased. So it really does come down to
how long did you say it was vacant for in the first instance? It was 9 months, wasn't it?
I thought it was about 7 months. So it could have been 9, but from what I could see, it was about 7 months. But it was quite astonishing because the marketing of that property has really impacted the return to that investor. The vacancy rate was just massive. You've lost more than half a year's worth of income, something you're never really going to get back. So marketing the property correctly is really, really important,
Well, we definitely touched on the marketing funnel in one of our last episodes where we chatted. So we won't speak much about that one, but do go back and listen to that episode if you're interested on maximising your rent in this or any other type of market. So number 5, many don't carry out the detailed condition reports. And I guess this relates back to some of the things you started mentioning with, the hidden things so what are you looking for in this point?
Well, I think why I giggled slightly was the property condition report is a legislative report, right? You have to use that report and you have to tick a few boxes. But to the degree in which you fill out that report is completely up to the person and the company who's filling out that report. So basically all you need to go through and do is say dining room walls, clean, undamaged, working order, that's all you have to do by law. It's the same template that everyone has to use, but it's about making sure that you capture every single part of the property in this report and making sure it's comprehensive, it's detailed, so that we can hold tenants to account if they do any damage to the property.
I mean, let's face it, Jewayne, this is all pretty boring stuff with regard to condition reports.
Yeah, sure is.
But when you go to hold a tenant to account later or you have to go to court, this is the Bible of how a property's condition started. And the real sad thing is that an owner doesn't even often see their condition report. And when we go and take over properties for management, and it happens every single month, when we've got new clients coming on, we assume the file that the other manager's prepared, and we look at the condition report that we've received from them, and boy, oh boy, this is not a... You'd think that with the templates coming in that it would improve the overall quality, but having a thorough and bulletproof property condition report is certainly a rarity.
Oh, it sure is. And the worst part is, I'd say maybe 50% of the files we collect don't have photos as part of the condition reports either.
Travis.
So in terms of...
It's a crime, Jewayne.
It's quite a scary thought that, when you've got a tick box and you tick 3 things, clean, undamaged, and, there's no description of the thing either, and there's no photos, I mean, you won't have a leg to stand on.
It does make it really hard later for resolving maintenance too, because if when you do your condition report, you note the appliance type, the brand, the the specs of it. You take a photo of the nameplate. What year that hot water system is, what exact type it is, and if you ever have an issue with it, you can more speedily give the plumber the details that are needed, and be
Yeah, it
sorting
gets
things
remedied a
out
lot
the first time
faster,
without
doesn't it?
having to bother the owner then.
Yeah, exactly. So I think detailed condition reports are pretty much the most important thing in keeping your property and your asset at a high standard over time. If you've just got one dodgy tenant that doesn't do the right thing and there's no detailed condition reports to hold them to account, that's where you see that property value slip and slide.
Yeah. And you do want to be maintaining your asset, because you never know when you're going to sell and take a step back to take a step forward, and you don't want to be discovering it then.
Yeah, spending money on 10, 20 grand fixing up the place before you sell it just to get it to a sellable standard. It's not really good investment of your money. Not necessarily anyway.
So number 6 is that many property managers are shockingly bad communicators. Does this surprise anyone? You probably wouldn't know how important this is until you've experienced, what bad communication is. And we recently did a survey of our clients, didn't we, Jewayne?
Yeah.
And asking them many different questions to see how we're going with our service and come up with all of the projects for improvement over the next year. But in one of the questions, we were asking them, what do they love most about our service? And probably 80% of people were throwing around, responsive communication, prompt communication, thoughtful, always getting back to me quickly, resolving issues before I knew about them, keeping me informed every step of the way. Like, that's what matters to me most as an investor, and what frustrated me and inspired me to start this agency. So, anything else to add to that one? I just got carried away. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. I do have a story to share. I was renting out a property a little while ago, and a tenant came to the property and said, "Oh, what's making you look at this property?" "Oh, to be honest, it's just one in the area, and I'm sick of renting through my current agent." "Oh, why is that?" "Because every time I call for a maintenance issue or a call to check on where I'm paid to with my rent, it's 2 to 3 weeks before they get back to me. In fact, they never pick up the phone, they just send me an email back. And I'm just sick of it. Maintenance has been outstanding for months and months and months, and I don't know where anything is at." So the tenant actually left the property, applied for our one, and when she did put the application form in, Jared, she mentioned, "Well, good luck catching up with that agent, because she won't return my calls. Good luck getting a return call from her." And no joke, it was a couple of weeks before we actually got an answer from this particular, probably about a week by the time she got back to us, and we got a reference check on that tenant. But it goes to show that if your property agent doesn't communicate well, you're actually losing tenants, costing you a fair bit of money with the tenant turnover and vacancy as well. So it was interesting to hear that coming from the tenant, because as landlords, you'd expect good communication, you're the paying client, but as a tenant, they find that really, really important too.
Definitely. And I guess that's why a lot of tenants do get frustrated and leave, and the owner never may know the true reason that they're vacating the property.
Yeah, it's true. It's very true.
So number 7, and this is the last of our shocking hidden property management truths, is too many investors are not getting paid rent. And where I was going to with this one is that I guess the standards for rent arrears are well above where they should be, in terms of 5% is considered to be a well-run portfolio. 5% of tenants are in arrears, and many agencies have a lot worse than that. So some may be operating with 10 to 15% of their tenants in arrears. So what that, I guess, means is for every 100 properties that they manage, between 5 and 15 owners are not getting paid that month. And not only that, the majority of agents still only pay out monthly. So they hold on to the funds over the month, and they're not clearing their trust account out weekly. So they're holding on to people's money, and they're not collecting to anywhere near the extent that I believe we should expect. So
I mean, I, for one, definitely want my money in my bank as soon as possible.
Oh, getting paid is the most important thing for an investor, isn't it?
That's why we're in it.
Yeah. So I guess we've done a lot of work over the last 5 years, especially when times got tougher. We had to increase our procedures and follow up around our tenants. And thankfully, even now, what percent are we at the moment? It was we're moving between 2 and 3%, and that's even with COVID. So we'd have, on average, 2 owners or 3 owners out of 100 not being paid. But we also work extremely hard to get it in as quickly as possible, so that even if they're a day behind or 2 days behind, we're on their case day one, not leaving it for 3 or 4 days,
That's
hoping
right, yeah.
that the money comes in.
Yeah, that's right. Jump on it straight away and try and get that money in ASAP.
Well, Jewayne, thanks for chatting through some of those hidden things today, and hopefully it'll give people a bit more idea of what to look for under the hood of their property manager when they're next going about appointing one. And of course, if people do want to check out our service, where should they go? And I guess they can speak to you, as you handle all of our potential new clients. So
Yep,
where's the best
definitely.
place for them to go?
I think the first place to visit is our website. That website, www.investorsedge.com.au. Yeah, that will share a lot of basic information that you might be chasing, but after having a look at that, yes, a conversation with myself, and we'll see if you might be the right fit to help.
And so just request a free rental price check if you do want to chat to Jewayne about your property and situation, and we can certainly take you through all the other things we're doing to, give clients guaranteed peace of mind. So thanks, Jewayne.
No worries. Thanks, Jared.
See you, mate.
Bye.